Hello everybody, and this is Mecha, and welcome to another style breakdown experiment happy time. This is going to be a bit of a weird and loosey-goosey one. I may draw something at the end, but to kick things off, we're talking about the Demon Slayer derp face phenomena. Demon Slayer, as many of you may know, is a very awesome anime with a striking art style. It's bold, and we can do a full breakdown on the art style of Demon Slayer, the effects of the manga versus the anime, because if you look at it, like, obviously it's not like they're ignoring the manga, but there's a very different art style, and I think a lot of that comes from the mediums that are used and techniques for animation. But this is something that does come from, it was in the manga used, but the show really took it somewhere else. I have a couple sections here geared up to kind of talk about that I think will help kind of go through it. So let's get into it. First off, like I said, I want to talk about the manga a little bit and how I think it might be going a little too far. Now you may be saying, Mecha, you said you're going to talk about the manga. That's clearly an anime snapshot. Yes, it is. We'll talk about that in a minute. And this does not say that any of this is bad, obviously. I still think it's very charming, very fun. But I think that the anime does these derp and silly faces so much better for a few reasons. Now, again, real quickly, it's important to note, none of this art is bad. This is someone making a comic, for Pete's sake. That is so much work. And I don't necessarily know how they do it. If anyone knows the details, if I was a good YouTuber, I would maybe do some research, but I didn't. But this has so much beautiful scratchiness that feels like it's just done on paper. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, again. But it feels like it breaks the silhouette. It breaks some of the design philosophies a little bit too much. I think, like, this arm here, for one, it's silly and it's cute, but it's such a divergence from the rest of the art. I think it also, you have a few open lines here, which isn't, again, the worst thing ever, but it happens with often enough that it's just a little, it doesn't have the same polish as the anime, I would say. And it's a little hard to recognize these characters, I think. And something else, and this isn't so much about the show, but part of when we do these breakdowns is how can you guys use this? And so the title of this section is Manga and Going Too Far. So some of the things that I think make it go a little too far is, like I said, it's losing the silhouette. It's just losing a few of those simpler rules for sake of silly. But something that we're going to see moving forward is that they don't mix the silly and derp faces with the crazy action, because obviously we have this, and it's an amazing eye catch shot here. And if I turn this off, if I turn that off, it's great. Throwing that in there, it's silly, and that's the thing, it stands out. It feels like a red light in an ocean, and that really just kind of kills all the polish in the show, because that's really one of the things that's so amazing about these silly derp faces is that oh no, this show is so polished. It has such a polished art style, so how can it get away with doing these very silly, not kind of not polished faces? Right there, separating. You can have humor and serious moments, but it has to be organic. And these faces aren't organic. These are shoehorned in, which is something that a lot of anime and manga do relatively well. So the next thing we're going to break down is the other two methods, and this is getting into a little bit better. I call this true derp. You're going to see this with Nezuko the most. And it's just the most simplest stuff. I mean, like, Tanjiro here is literally one egg and little dots. And then, but what's bringing it back a little bit is his iconic character features, the earrings, that great anime shape hair. That's all you need, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I got Tanjiro again. And that's a really cool effect. And what this is showing, that it's not so much about how they're drawing the derp faces, it's how strong these character designs are to begin with. And again, I think that, if you look at the manga, he still has those details. The hair is there, he has the Hanafuda earrings, but you can't really see the pattern of the earrings. The silhouette of his body changed up here. Looks kind of like a Peanuts character. It just doesn't feel like Tanjiro as much anymore. This still feels like Tanjiro, because even as you've taken him out of his normal uniform, it's still so much else is on track. And part of it does come down to coloring. Manga often doesn't have color. Anime does. And when you have a character with a solid color palette, Nezuko's pink, Tanjiro's green, that goes a long way in making that character recognizable, even if you change up the style. So that's a big part. So as you simplify it, you still have these really recognizable and relatively fast and easy things to work on. And like I said, just keep it really easy to track and follow along with. And part of the other thing is, again, that I think the anime, this is, again, my opinion. I could be wrong. You may disagree with me. That's all fine. But the anime has a stronger art style identity than the manga does, I think. The manga looks like one person's hard work. And that's beautiful. It really is. This also comes into, as I'm trying to do this little doodle here, I think it's hard to draw bamboo. That's my personal opinion here. So yeah, the anime, I think, has just a stronger art style identity that I can fall back to. There's so much that's so consistent with it. Demon Slayer has these strong outlines on all of it. It has this high pressure sensitivity on some of the line work. And so, when you're doing this, you can draw them and then just throw that hard stroke on. And it really helps bring it back into the style of the show. Now, here, the next one we're going to go over is where I think the Demon Slayer derp faces are to the max. Now, this may not be derp, because if you're looking at my layers here, you'll see that the next one is labeled exaggerated. And this is just a classic. I didn't mean to grab 3 Tengen images, but it just worked. But yeah, exaggeration, and it's the classic rule of comics, anime, cartoons. You're always trying to exaggerate an emotion. So if I go back to the manga here, it feels like I'm just kind of chewing on it. They don't have, to me, again, it's not bad work. It's not like they're zero, but I don't see what's being exaggerated with these as much. And part of it is that these are full body shots too. Again, if we look at the anime and how it does them, you're often zoomed in super tight on the face, and you're really framing up, the focus. Here, it's a little too wide, a little too awkward. It may have just been, them trying to work with whatever the paneling situation was. I don't know. But it doesn't feel like there's an emotion being exaggerated as much as simplicity, which simplicity can be beautiful. But these really do push just this full exaggeration. Whether it's a deadpan, I do not care face, this uncanny valley stare into your soul, anger. Like, again, you may be saying this definitely isn't derp, and you're right, it isn't. But if we look at how Demon Slayer is often portrayed, they have those beautiful eyes, right? And a lot of care is put into how their eyes are drawn and depicted. And not just the eye, but the eyebrows, everything that goes around the rest of it. And here, that's all just thrown out the window. Here we have, again, just exaggerating these feelings of shock and crap and anger, and that really, I think, helps. And in the context of the show, like, looking at these out of context, they feel like memes almost. They feel like bastardizations of the show. But in context, in the scene, it's set up. It's, them talking to this big, strong Hashira, to his back, and he just stops and kind of turns around and goes, "The F did you say to me?" And it's all a tool for the narrative or the emotion or the acting. This is all acting. None of this is just thrown in there because they said, "Hey, we haven't drawn a silly face in 2 episodes. Let's get something in there." Or maybe they do think like that, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels organic to the moment of, this is ridiculous. We need the audience to know that we know it's ridiculous. And I think that's really something that y'all can take into your own work and utilize and push forward with it. And again, one of the reasons that made Uzui a really nice character to use for this is he's flashy, which means very recognizable character attributes. This can be a really simple face. If we're really breaking it down, boof, 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 boof. This doesn't look like Tengen, obviously. And this is probably close to what a storyboard looked like at some point. But without tracing and redlining the rest of it, I think that already is really bringing it forward. And again, you'll see I threw these in. It's, I think, recognizable as Tengen now. However, it's still not in that super clean Demon Slayer look. There's minimal tangents, if any. The line work is, again, because they put that stroke in, it's so crisp. The silhouette is so very strong, especially if you look at them on a brighter background. Look at this line just defining this egg of a head, and then coming through again with the beads. And you can see it actually really does. It looks like a Photoshop line stroke that they did sometimes, because it's just going around the silhouette for the most part, and that just makes it all tie together and be like, this is my character. So again, Tanjiro, again, this keeps coming down to strong character design. Having this recognizable mark that only gets more recognizable through the show. The Hanafuda earrings. Almost thinking in the anime, I don't think that they really ever didn't show the pattern on those. You always can tell those are the Hanafuda earrings. So much so that even if you see another character wearing them, it makes you think Tanjiro. And these connections, these pieces of design philosophy, just help make it stand out as what they want. And again, you'll look at it, you'll see very framed up. If you're trying to do a gag, make sure you see the gag. There's certain types of humor that do work with like a zoomed out lens, and it's the ridiculousness of someone being so weird and random in a realistic setting. That's a really hard thing to pull off, because it's easy for that to feel lazy, because instead of writing something genuinely funny, it's funny because, oh, everyone else is irritated with this person. So it's not the joke that's funny, it's how everyone else is reacting. And again, it's not always lazy, but it's a pitfall to fall into. I think if you're trying to write comedy, if you're trying to write horror, make the thing itself. Context is important, but try to make that one thing land. And again, I think, but these images show that the joke itself, with the punchline, even without the build up and the send off and the follow through, these are already really funny. So if you're trying to look at how to do better at drawing derp faces, whether you're trying to do your own comic or show, or even if you're trying to do writing, it's the same classic thing. Start with a strong design. Start with something recognizable, so that when you simplify it, you know what you're simplifying. Get reference. Look at how you look when you're portraying these faces, because if you try to say, "Oh, I want to draw the Tengen face," and you're just reference this. This is a good example, but it's going to be really easy to have this thing that just, because they referenced reality probably. If you're just referencing the art, you're going to have a hard time short of tracing. But again, tracing, we stand by it. It's a great tool, but it's not work that you can turn in. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. Take a look at yourself. Take a look at mom, dad, your sister, your brother, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. And say, hey, just try making them make that face. Like, don't even say, hey, make a face that shows disgust. That's worthwhile. But if you can be like, hey, listen, I need you to give me some genuine reactions and try to do something that makes them look at you like that and get that genuine reaction. And then again, you know what you need to emphasize. And it's coming from a more real place. But with that said, again, anime especially works off its own tropes a lot. So look at the greats. Look at Demon Slayer. Look at Naruto. Look at Fullmetal Alchemist is another one I think has some of the best silly faces in anime. Maybe that's the thing. Like I've been wanting to do one of those in between reactions from animation. Maybe we should do a derp face reaction, because Fullmetal Alchemist has some great gag shots. But for now, I might drop into time lapse. I may try to come up with my own little Demon Slayer silly faces. I don't know. Hey, this is Futuretron. Yeah, I decided to do my own. So this is gonna be a little mini comic of just a little hit cam interaction, just having some fun. We're gonna have Arrow just done with some of the fantasy nonsense. And yeah, can you keep in mind I'm gonna have a reference image of Arrow up here, and I like to think that we designed good characters. Maybe we didn't. This maybe is a time to critique us, but this is an exercise that's easy to do with your own characters, boiling it down to simplicity, which our hit cam art style is already kind of simplistic, but triangles on her everywhere. She has that one big triangle part of her hair, the back of her hair, the way her outfit kind of sashes over itself is, I think, pretty recognizable. So, and for the most part, a lot of it, the design doesn't change. It's just kind of making the head proportion bigger and again exaggerating the face. If this was an animated shot, I probably would be even more zoomed in on the face, but again, this is kind of where I get some of the manga choices. It's a lot of work on paneling, so. And this is the other thing that I found. When you're exaggerating, don't feel like you have to stick with the first idea. It's a thing that gets brought up a lot in art, but your first idea might not be the best one. And one of the things here was I had an idea of these silly, just like lines for closed eyes thing. Turned out having those eyes open got the emotion I wanted to get across more. And then the other thing is, again, part of this is like really clean line work. It is something very important to the Demon Slayer art style, I think, and makes this gag land a lot better. So if you're working, use the tools you have. If you have digital erase, like the vector erase tool in Clip Studio that you can cut off at the intersection, use it. If you have a ruler, use it. Just use the smart things. Be smart. But yeah, so hope you enjoyed it. Comment what you want to see next. If you have ideas for silly in-betweens to react to or gag panels, comment those. But until next time, be safe, have fun, make stuff. Bye.